Peace, blessings, and abundance. Welcome to another episode of Sacred Birth Sessions. I am Jessica Pierre, birth doula, educator, and creator of the Sacred Birth Blueprint. This space is for women who want more than just surface level birth advice and who want to feel more informed and grounded and confident, not blindsided when it's time to give birth. So let's take a breath, settle in, and let's get into today's session. So let's talk about something that a lot of women think about but don't always feel comfortable doing. And that's advocating for yourself during birth. And not in a confrontational way, just in a clear, grounded, confident type of way. Because advocating for yourself doesn't mean arguing. It doesn't mean pushing back on everything, and it just means being a part of what's happening. Remember that this is your birth experience, and you have the right to speak up for yourself and ask questions. So again, one of the simplest ways to advocate for yourself is simply by asking questions. You can ask why. Why is this being recommended? Is this something that needs to happen right now? Like, these are some of the questions that you can honestly ask. And I utilize the BRAIN tool, and BRAIN is an acronym. And I always teach this to my mom so that they can be comfortable advocating for yourself. And what it stands for is the benefits. You can ask, hey, okay, you're suggesting this. What are the benefits? What are the risks? B for benefits, R for risks. What are the alternatives? Is there something else that we can do in the moment? And then using your intuition. That's super important as well. And then nothing. What if we do nothing? What's going to happen? Because sometimes some providers will come in and they'll be like, hey, let's break your water. It might speed up the process, things like that. And that's your cue to use the BRAIN tool. What are the benefits? What are the risks? What are the alternatives? Let me use my intuition. And if we don't do anything right now, what may happen? And a lot of the time, nothing will happen. A lot of these suggestions are just that. They are suggestions. All of the interventions and things like that, unless you're high risk and you have a life or death situation and things like that, and they'll let you know, they'll break that down for you. But especially in a non-emergent situations, providers, they'll give you space and time to kind of think about things and make an actual informed decision. Another thing that some women don't realize is you can slow things down. You can literally utilize that BRAIN tool and say, not right now. You can also say, just give me a moment, where you can take time to talk to your partner about it, talk to your support person, talk to your doula. And sometimes you can just take a moment to take a breath before making decisions. At the end of the day, advocating isn't about being aggressive. It's about being clear. When people hear the word advocate, they think, oh, I gotta push back. I gotta, rah. That's not the case. You're literally just asking questions so that you can make informed decisions. And informed decisions and informed consent is not a signed piece of paper. It's about being clear as to what's going on. What interventions are being suggested? Are they truly needed? And you can be calm and firm at the same time. You can also be respectful and still be heard. You can respond to not wanting cervical exams. You can tell them, hey, can we not do a cervical exam right now? Some moms, they want to have a cervical exam done because they want to know where they are. And then there are some moms who that's very uncomfortable and I don't want it unless absolutely necessary, Or there are certain moms that they're just like, no, I don't want to know where I am. I want to trust my body in this process. And you have all rights to say that, especially if there's no emergent situation going on. You can also decline students assessing you. Because one thing that a lot of moms don't realize as well is if a student comes in and they do a cervical exam, depending on how far they are in their career, the provider still has to come behind them, or the resident still has to come behind them and do another cervical exam to make sure that they assessed you correctly. And again, cervical exams are not the most comfortable. So you have all rights to say, you can watch, but not physically touch me. These are things that you can definitely decline or think about. You don't have to allow this stuff to take place. Another thing is delayed cord clamping. Unless there is an emergency where baby needs to be transferred to NICU or taken over to the warmer and assessed, or whatever the case may be, delayed cord clamping is one other thing that you can advocate. In a hospital setting, usually they're like, oh, we can do 30 seconds of cord clamping. In my local hospital, one of the local hospitals here, they're like, oh, we can wait 1 to 3 minutes. And depending on the provider, they'll wait until the cord stops pulsing to where most of the blood has transferred from placenta to baby. Or you can do like one of my clients did most recently and advocate for herself not to cut it at all. Placenta was delivered, they put it in a bucket next to her and baby, and they clamped it and cut it, I don't know, maybe it was like an hour and a half later. So again, as long as everything is safe, nothing's going on with you, nothing is going on with baby, you can advocate for yourself. And again, you don't have to be loud, you don't have to have an attitude, you don't have to be aggressive in any type of way, but you can be firm and respectful and still be heard. And again, when it comes to advocating, yes, you can advocate for yourself, but also have the right support team around you. That matters too. They can ask questions just like you can. They are your support team for a reason. Have them ask questions. And me personally, as a doula, I ask questions all the time. Partially because I just want to gain knowledge and experience for myself, but I also bring those questions up to help bring clarity to my clients in that moment, because sometimes we just don't know what questions to ask. So having those support people around to ask questions that maybe you can't think about because you're in the middle of a contraction, or you're in the middle of trying to figure out what decision am I making. Your support people can also be the ones to help keep you grounded in those moments, because your partner, your family, your friends, they know you better than anyone else in the room, and they should know what to say and what to do to help keep you from going up and down on this emotional roller coaster. In one of my previous episodes, I did talk about a mom who went in for a vaginal birth and ended up having to have a C-section, and her mom grabbed her and held on to her as she cried, just to kind of keep her grounded, whispering in her ear, everything will be okay. That's the type of support that you need around you. They can also help communicate when you're focused inward. If you are in the middle of a contraction, or if you are in a phase of labor, like active labor, or even transition right before you get ready to push, a lot of the times we don't see mom's eyeballs. They're going inward, they're searching for that strength within, and sometimes they can't talk through those phases of labor or those particular contractions. And having those support people around to be able to speak up for you is super important. Make sure you have those conversations with your family and your friends and your spouse or your partner. Have conversations with them. Go over your birth plan with them. Make sure that everybody in that room that is there for you has knowledge of what you desire. Because if you come to a point where you just can't speak up for yourself because you're so focused on what your body is doing, those are the people that you need around you to help advocate for you. And yes, the hospitals usually ask for your birth plan, so they'll have it, but these nurses and doctors, they see people constantly, all day, every day, and they're not going to keep that in their mind. And sometimes, depending on the situation, they may not have your birth plan right there in front of them. And so this all connects back to preparation, because when you understand what's happening, you feel more confident in speaking up. Take all of the classes that you can, go through the hospital tour if you're choosing a hospital, or the birth center tour if you're choosing birth center. Ask all the questions at your prenatal visits. When you do the tours, ask questions. You can get information off of social media. Yes, you can, but please be careful, because there's a lot of filtered information out there, and there's also a lot of opinions, even from people who have little to no experience as to what's going on. So make sure and get information from trusted sources, people who have experience. And you can talk to family and friends who have given birth in the past. Maybe not like your mom or your grandma too much. Yes, you can take information from there, but just be mindful and use your discernment as well, because things that happened back in what these children nowadays like to call the 1900s are different from the protocols that are happening nowadays in the hospitals and in birth centers, just in birth period. So when you feel like you can speak up, you don't feel like things are just happening to you. You feel like you are actually part of the process. So preparation. I cannot say that enough. Prepare. You want to be part of that process. You will feel like your voice you have a voice in your birth. Because again, it's your birth, as you should. So try not to let the people around you dictate what's going on. This is also something that I review when I walk my moms through their pregnancy journey and their labor experience, because it's not just about knowing your options. It's about feeling comfortable using your voice when it matters the most. And I can speak on that because I'm a Black woman. So I can understand the representation and the lack of representation in certain instances. But a lot of the time we don't feel seen or heard. I mean, we hear stories all the time. We just heard about the mom who was also a doula who had a court-ordered C-section. That is ridiculous. We shouldn't feel or be treated in any type of way differently from other people, but it happens. And we can prepare all we want, and then, things happen. But preparing as much as possible, having that support team around, all of that truly matters. And you don't have to be loud. You don't have to be confrontational at all, but you deserve to be heard. This is your birth experience, and please remember that. So if this episode helped you in any way to feel more clear, a little bit more grounded, or even a little bit more prepared, just information alone, then I am so glad that you are here. Please make sure to be subscribed so that you don't miss another session. And if this resonated with you, please share this with someone you know who might need it as well. I will talk to you on the next one. Peace, blessings, and abundance.